Welcome to a new episode on the Technomura channel. We really hope you will enjoy watching it and invite you to tell us what you think of it by leaving your reactions below the video. And now, please allow me to present your host, Technomura.
Right, thank you, Julie, for that nice introduction. And now, on with our video of today. A problem you may all have encountered when restoring or repairing vintage stuff or equipment like I do is that often parts that we need are missing, are simply gone. And what we all do in a natural reflex in search of the part that we're missing is to scour the internet, and I'm thinking more specifically of websites, like Craigslist or eBay or even Amazon. We do on occasion find the very part that we're looking for. And in my case, I'm the proud owner of a vintage Sony black and white portable TV of the 1960s. I'd even say the early 1970s. And it's a very nice little TV which I restored. You can watch the videos of it down below on my page. But the problem is that that nice little TV only has one tuning knob. So this knob is actually the one which fits over the VHF tuning knob, but the one necessary for the UHF tuning knob or channel knob is missing. Like I said, I scoured the internet in search of this very knob, and I did manage to find somebody selling one like this on eBay. But so the guy who was selling this specific knob on eBay asked for the knob alone $22 and then another $25 to ship it. It's only a little bit of plastic, or at best bakelite, and a little bit of metal, like for example a little bit of aluminum. So I flatly refuse to pay an outrageous price for that. So tonight I'm going to do something which I never did before, which is to try to create a mold out of a special kind of silicone rubber, which I will then try to use to create a part out of maybe polyester or even a two-component glue or something like that, and either color the material with special colorant or paint it in the right color. Alright, I cleaned the button with some paper towels and a little bit of Windex, like the bottle you see over there. And yeah, the button looks clean. There's no more dust or grime on it. So what are we going to do next? Well, to be able to make a mold, we need a few products, okay? And one of the main products, of course, is the actual rubber. And I bought this rubber here, 500 milliliters of it. It says 500 grams. It's pretty close, but it's roughly 500 milliliters. But you also need example, a catalyst. Okay, so this little bottle here. The whole goal of this exercise is that you pour some of the rubber around the knob and then let it set and cure, and then you cut out the object enclosed in the rubber, and what's left behind is a hollow which has the exact shape of this knob. Once it's inside the can and we start pouring in the rubber compound, which is over there, inside the can, we don't want the knob to shift. I made a little platform for the knob to stand on. So obviously it would stand up a little like this on top of the platform, and this whole thing here will stand inside the can here. Alright, so we want to measure as precisely as possible how much liquid, and I mean by liquid I mean either hardener, so, or the catalyst like they call this, and the rubber itself. Okay, now obviously you don't want to overfill the cup first of all, and I'll need to make a rough estimate how much I need to fill up the cup with the button before well, obviously before I push in the button, because for one simple reason, I need to pour in the unhardened or the unmixed rubber, okay, so this product here, into the cup, then pour in the catalyst, and then mix the whole thing with a little stirring stick like this, which is nothing more than something you'd use to roast meat on a barbecue or something like that. So, and then we'll pour it in here and then mix it in here, okay? And once the whole mixture has been thoroughly stirred, I will need to push in the knob and its little stand, which you see there in the background, without, of course, the cup overflowing. Alright, so I mixed the liquid, so the rubber and the catalyst. I'm still mixing it a little bit. So what I'm going to do in a moment is I'm going to submerge the button and its little stand into the rubber I mixed here. So now what we're going to do is submerge the knob into the liquid. So here we go. Here it is. So I don't know if you guys can see this. Okay, so in it goes. There you go. Okay, I slowly push the whole thing down. There you go. It's now almost submerged. So what I need to do next is add a little bit more rubber to fill it up. Alright, so I added a little bit more rubber on top of it, and I'm going to mix it as well as I can, if I can mix it all up. Like this. Don't know if you guys can see this, but I'm just dipping in and out of the original mixture, and I'm bringing it up to the top to mix it with the extra rubber I poured in. It's completely covered now. So now starts the waiting game. They say 3 to 5 hours curing time. So that's exactly what we'll do. We'll wait 3 to 5 hours. Alright, we're 24 hours later, and we're going to see what happened, whether the rubber mold has cured or not. And I can tell you immediately at first glance, I don't think it has completely set. This is a remnant of the spillover, and you can see this is still liquid. And when I touch the top, there's still some uncured rubber coming off of it. So I'm not entirely convinced this will be good. Rather than go quick and dirty like I did the first time, I really took my time this time to think it through, and I identified what I believe to be the main problem in casting this particular knob. And the problem is there is an opening in the knob which, if the rubber can go through and connects up from one side to the other, it effectively locks the knob inside the rubber, which ultimately would force me to have to make all sorts of cuts to cut the knob loose. So rather than, like I said, go for the quick and dirty method, I took my time, and I think I figured it out. And what I did was, and I grant you it's a trade-off, is I plugged what I identified as being the problem. So, namely that space that runs through the knob, as it were. Okay? And I plugged that up, and I also plugged up the bottom of the knob. So the rubber will effectively coat everything on top of the button, and even, you could say, inside there, right there, inside of the knob. But that being said, the rubber that goes inside the knob, as it were, can never connect up with the rubber on top. So we're safe in that direction, and we're safe in this direction. Alright, so I'm using soft drink cans as mold, and the aluminum of the cans is actually so thin that I can actually cut it with a knife, and I'm using my favorite knife to do that. It's a stainless steel knife in one piece, which makes it extra easy to clean, and it's very sharp. So what you do, you actually puncture the can, and then you slowly cut the aluminum like this. Okay, and I would like to say that the brand of the soft drink is, I'm not being sponsored, okay, by the maker of this soft drink, just so you know. It's just a can I had lying around of some of my favorite drink, okay? Nothing more. So, here we go. Alright, so there you go. And whatever is left of the can, I can simply cut with a pair of scissors, just like that. Alright, so to make a rough estimate of how many grams you will need to pour, and I mean this is really just a rough estimate, of course, what you actually need to do is know the diameter of your casting mold, which is this little container really, you need to know the diameter of it and the approximate height that will be filled with the object you're going to take the mold off. And in this case it would be, of course, the height of this knob, which is about 40 millimeter, but I'm going to take as a safety measure the height of 55 millimeter. Okay, the diameter of the can is 60 millimeters. So I'll put the link down below the video, but there is a website which allows you to calculate the volume of a cylinder. Okay, so you just put in, first of all, you choose the diameter, so diameter, then you put the diameter in millimeter, and I said 60 millimeter, 60, okay, then, and you can choose the unit in which you want to input. You can input it in inches if you want to. We said the height is 55 millimeter. Okay, again I choose the as units millimeters, and then they ask in which unit would you like the result, and I would choose milliliter. Okay, so milliliter. So now we know approximately how much milliliter of rubber we need to pour inside the can. But of course, let's say I exaggerated a little bit, and you also have to remember the knob itself has a certain volume, of course. So from the 155 you see there, I'm going to detract 30 milliliter, okay, just for the volume of the knob itself. How much is 3 parts of 115 grams? Well, 115 times 0.03. Okay? So you multiply 115 by 0.03. And how much is that? 3.45 grams. Alright, so you remember that for our first pour we used the catalyst's bottle top as a measuring cup, and that was about 3 grams. If we pour the contents of the cup and a few drops more, we should have 3.45 grams. So let's just do that. There you go. So now We pour that in the rubber, and I pour a little bit more, just a little bit, like that. That's a few drops, and we pour that with the rest. Okay, so now what we do is we start mixing it. Alright, I really need to go fast now because it's starting to get really gloopy now. Alright, so the second attempt went a little bit better than the first one. The result is not so tacky as the first one. I mean, the first attempt, which you see standing over there, okay, is still tacky and gloopy, and yeah, I used way too little catalyst or hardener, if you wish, in that one. This one, however, hardened to perfection, and the shape of the button inside is really good, but for one flaw, as you can tell, I waited just a little too long to pour it in, and I used probably just a little too much catalyst. And that created some voids you see right now in the rubber mold. So, like I said, it's still not good, but I learned a few precious lessons. One of them is that I shouldn't use too much catalyst, and I should mix it faster. Alright, so the mold is prepared. I inserted the knob into the mold, and what I just need to do next is mix the rubber and pour it in. Alright, I mixed in close to 114 grams, maybe just a little bit less. Actually, I should say I poured in close to 114 grams of rubber in the mixing can, okay, and I'm going to add yet again a little bit of hardener, like from this bottle, but this time, instead of filling the bottle cap to the rim with hardener, I'm going to stay below it by a few mil, and then add it to the rubber and mix it with my trusted stainless steel knife. Okay, I mixed the rubber. Now I'm going to pour it in. Okay, the whole mold has set, and it's, well, I wouldn't say it's rock hard, but it's really, really firm, and it's not tacky anymore, not at all. So I'm going to extract the mold from the metal can first, and then I'm going to give it a little bit of thought how exactly I'm going to extract the knob from the mold. Alright, I decided to cut off the bottom piece of the mold off of the buttons mold, yeah. And here you see the paper barrier I had inserted, okay, and except for a little bit of overspill, Um, the paper barrier, which you'll recall, um, which consists of glazed paper. Yeah. Seems to have done its work. Yeah. So there you go. This is the bottom of the mold, and we're going to tear the paper barrier off, and it comes off pretty painlessly like this. Okay, and there you have it. I'm using the lower part of the mold as let's say the next receptacle for the next batch of rubber I'm going to pour. And as you can tell, I only need to pour, say, a little bit, the equivalent, roughly speaking, in volume of this object here, perhaps a bit more. I mixed only 20 grams or so of the stuff, so that should be enough to cover the bottom. Alright, so the rubber I poured on top is hardened, and I'll admit that I added a little bit more hardener than the original drop I poured in. Okay, so I think I poured in maybe the equivalent of 4 or 5 extra drops in the rubber, because it just wasn't curing fast enough. And now it's completely dry, not tacky or anything. So let's unpack it. So you're the first ones to see it, just as I am. So let's see what the result is. I'm pretty curious to see whether the rubber, in fact, the extra rubber I poured on top of the original mold, has attached itself to, and yes, it has. It has. Okay, there's still a little bit of uncured rubber which has crept between the insulation tape, and I need to wipe that away. Alright, okay, so here we have it, cured and hard, and the button is enclosed, completely enclosed now, top and bottom in rubber. So what we need to figure out now is how to cut open the mold, okay, because the trouble is this, I mean, you can cut it open any old way you like, but obviously we don't want to create too many voids in the rubber, right? Because if we do, and remember, our goal is to pour in some polyester or something like that. I haven't decided yet what I'm going to pour in, or some special glue to make the shape. Yeah, the more cuts you make in the mold, obviously, the more run out you might have from the stuff you pour in the mold, okay, and that will create inevitably flashing, so little edges around the thing you're pouring. Alright, I decided that I would take a box cutter knife like this, okay, So I decided I would take a box cutter knife and I will cut the mold along the little stick you remember I'd glued with some insulation tape to the top of the knob. Why? Well, for one, because I am pretty certain in what direction the knob is underneath this little stick. Where if I would make any kind of cut at the bottom, I would have almost no clue where the button is. Okay. So yeah, let's just do this. Let's cut along the little stick, just next to it. Like this. And it's surprising how easy it is to cut, and it feels a lot like cutting into meat, actually. So it's a very weird experience to cut into the shape, but there you go. Okay, there you go. Now I have to be careful because otherwise I will damage the knob, of course. So I need to make tiny cuts in the rubber, bit by bit, so as not to damage the knob. Okay, so there it is. I can see the knob. Okay, so I don't know if you guys can see what I'm doing, but okay, so I made a cut, and you can see the knob down there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut along the edge and try to cut the knob free and create in effect two halves that we can stick together later, and that way reassemble our mold when we will pour the epoxy into it. So there you go. I think you can start to see the button be revealed. So now I make a cut. It's important that you make a clean cut because the dirtier the clean is, the harder it'll be to reassemble the mold for the pour of the epoxy, right? So now let me inspect. Where is the knob still attached? Ah, okay. I can tell where. Alright. So you can stretch the rubber a little bit, yeah, so that won't harm it. But of course you shouldn't overstretch it, because if you do, then you will deform the rubber, which is obviously something you don't want. You don't want to deform the rubber too much. Let me see. What do I need to do more? Okay. Okay, so this is as far as I got it. Now I need to make two more little cuts down there to cut the knob free. Okay. And yeah, I Okay, now there's one more cut I need to make down there. Alright, so that's what I'm going to do. Okay, and it's starting to let loose. There you go. Got it. So that's one half of the mold. Alright. So now I need to make one more cut on the other side. I don't know if you guys can see this, but it's really hard to do without damaging the knob, obviously. We don't want to damage the knob, clearly. And that's not so easy. Alright, there you go. We're almost there. Hold your breath. There you go. Okay. Alright, so there you go. We cut the knob loose. So now I should be able to extract it from the rubber. And indeed I can. There you go. So there is the inside of the mold. Alright? So, what do we do now? Well, we reassemble the whole mold, but we cut down there a little hole through which we'll be able to pour in the epoxy. And to cast a button, I'm not going to use epoxy glue, but I'm going to use this. Alright? So I'm not being sponsored by this manufacturer or producer, yeah, but this is really a polyester which you can buy in, let's say, an automotive shop where they sell repair kits to, I don't know, to repair fenders or stuff like that with polyester. And actually, so this is liquid polyester. Now, with the polyester, so this stuff here, the liquid I would say, comes a little tube of hardener or catalyst, if you wish. And I read the instructions, and they are incredibly tiny, as you can tell. So I had to use one of my lenses to read it. But what it actually says is that you need, per part of, or per quantity of polyester you're going to use, you need about 2.5% 2.5% of hardener. Let's see how much the button itself weighs. Alright, so the button weighs 9 grams. So, if the little pop weighs 5 grams, that means we should pour in 9 grams of polyester, but we're going to lose a bit and all that, so I would go for 15 grams. You shake it up a little bit, And then what you do is you just open it. Now, this has a safety cap, alright? So which means that if you're going to open it, there are some latches on the side. So to open it up, you really need to press those two red little catches in. And that way you can open it up. Now inside there's a little, well, you could say a little stop, which you need to pull out. Now remember, the moment you pull this out, the polyester inside the can will start to age, and this has a limited shelf life. Yeah, I think you can't keep it longer than about a year or so. The same with the hardener. Alright, so let me open it up. It has a kind of a very sickly sweet odor, not particularly pleasant. But okay, so there you go, I pulled the tab out. Now, what we do is we pour in some of it. And remember, I need 9 grams, but I'm going to pour in about 15 grams, okay? So, or thereabouts. So, alright, that should be it. Let's see. Yeah, the liquid is kind of yellow. Alright. So 9 plus 5 would be 14, and we have 18 grams. That's okay. That's good. You need about 2.5% hardener for the volume of polyester you're going to mix. So, what did I say? Okay, 19, say 18 and a half, 18.5, 18 and a half grams times 0.025 is equal to 0.4625. So half a gram almost of hardener that we'll need to mix in. And we're not going to use too much of this because this is very dirty stuff, so you really need to be careful. And just a few drops, there you go. Alright, so now we mix it in. It's incredibly potent colorant, okay, so you really don't need a huge amount of it. Alright, so I bought this on eBay. I'll put a link down below the video, just in case you would like to buy some of this colorant yourself. Okay. The polyester, by the way, I bought in some local DIY shop in the car maintenance department, but I'm pretty certain you can get it anywhere you live, in the area where you live. So, but I suppose you could also buy it on eBay. Okay. So, what are we going to do now? There's no hardener in this yet, and this is our mold here. So what we're going to do is we're going to mix the hardener into the polyester and then pour it in the mold. Now remember, once you pour in about 2.5% mass of your polyester with hardener, let's say, you only have at most, say, 5 or 6 minutes. Okay, so it has been 3 hours now since I poured the epoxy. Actually, it's not epoxy, it's polyester, and the witness piece here has hardened out. It's still slightly tacky, not very, but slightly so. And the surface of it is slightly tacky, but not to such a degree that you can't work with it. So let's see if I can pop it out. I probably could pop it out, but I'll do that in a moment. In any case, be that as it may, the piece has dried or cured, so let's unpack it from the mold. Okay, let's have a look. Okay. Here it is. Oh. Okay. Well, that's a bit disappointing. I had sort of hoped it would be better, but it looks more like smoked plastic. But, and now comes the problem. Now comes the problem, which is that oh, I see. Although, let me think. No. Let's see now. Okay, I get it. Okay, so for some reason or other, the whatchamacallit, the polyester didn't go inside the side channels, so that's why the knob, as it were, has this peculiar shape here. So it's not quite what I had hoped it would be. Very strange. Okay, so yeah, it's, let's say it worked out half correctly, but not quite. So what I think I'd better do or try is to attempt a second pour. Yeah. This, however, looks okay. It looks more like smoked plastic than black plastic. So I suppose I could add a little more. And it certainly has a few imperfections. Also, it's still quite a bit tacky. So this could do with at least another 24 hours of hardening. So yeah, there are a few problems I need to address. Alright, so I finished pouring in the polyester, and as you can tell, if you look at the venting holes here, they also contain polyester. So that would tell me that there's a high likelihood that the polyester has flowed now correctly, all the way from the bottom up to the very top of the mold, inside of course. So what I'm going to do next is shake it a little more to be sure that there is no air trapped inside, and then with whatever I've got left of the mixture, I'm going to pour a witness piece inside this cup, just to be able to see how long it will take for the polyester to harden and how it will, what it will look like. Alright, so I just unwrapped the tape which held together my mold. So now you and I together are going to discover how the casting went. So if you're willing to bet that it went either way, good or bad, then now is the moment to do so, because I'm going to break open the mold and have a look. So here we go. Well, let's hope it worked out. Okay. Alright. Here you go. This is the mold. Well, this is the casting, I should say. So let's see if I break it out of the mold. What it looks like. And there you go. Okay. It doesn't look great, but yeah, well, it looks reasonable. Let me give you a close-up. So this is a close-up of our casting. Alright, we're at the end of this video, and I think I want to conclude before we put the knob to a final test on the TV for which this knob I made was meant to be used. Now, you'll note that the button I cast is by no means perfect. Okay, so I attempted to make it look as much as possible to the real deal, which is this one, of course. Okay, so the knob I made is by no means identical or as pretty as the original one. Okay, but let's say it was my first attempt to make one, and I'm pretty certain with a little bit more effort I could manage to make one which looks pretty near to what the original one is. Now it does take quite a bit of effort. Now I discovered by accident really what must have happened to one of the original knobs of the TV. So what happened was I had mounted my molded knob to the TV, trying to twist the channel selector, and the top part broke off. Let me show you. So you could say this part, yeah, more or less this part here, broke off. And I had to repair it, but it was, fortunately for me, a very clean break, and you can see it still a little bit where I repaired it, yeah. And I can tell you now, after the repair of the knob, that super glue works fantastic on polyester, at least. So yeah, if you break one of your castings and it is polyester, you can in fact use a super glue to repair it, which I did. And I also, as you can tell, I mounted a sort of a metal ring around it, pretty much like what the original one has. Although here on the original one it's painted, on mine it's actually true metal. Okay, I used very thin aluminum tape, yeah, which I cut into a band and then stuck around the edge or the perimeter of the knob. I wasn't entirely successful because right here where you see that damaged edge, the knob wasn't complete. I mean, the casting wasn't complete. So yeah, that's what you see there. But okay, let's say it's a first attempt, and as such I'm pretty pleased. I learned a few valuable lessons doing this, and I know now that next time when I need to make a casting, there are a few things I will need to keep an eye on. But as such, for my very first casting, I'm pretty pleased with the result. Alright, so here's the original knob back in its place on my favorite Sony TV 520 Space Age black and white portable TV. And if my camera wants to cooperate a little bit. And here is the knob that I cast, and it does function. If you look at the dial window of the VHF tuner, so it does work. Not perfectly, I'll admit, but it does what it needs to do. So if you want to see me do more of these castings in future videos, please leave a comment below the video. And if you haven't done so, then please give me a thumbs up if you liked the video. And above all, I would like to thank you for watching.